What if your anxiety isn't a disorder, but actually means you're more intelligent than most people? Think about it. What if that feeling of dread when you watch the news isn't a mental health problem, but a perfectly rational response to actual threats? What if your social anxiety isn't a dysfunction, but rather heightened awareness of complex social dynamics others miss? Today I'm going to reveal why millions of people are being diagnosed with disorders when they're actually experiencing something completely different, something that might even be a form of intelligence. Stay until the end, where I'll share a simple 3-question test to determine if your feelings are signs of a disorder or actually healthy awareness. Modern Western society has developed a concerning tendency to medicalize and pathologize normal human responses to challenging situations. Let me give you an example. Irene was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder after experiencing persistent worry about climate change. Her therapist prescribed medication and cognitive techniques to correct her catastrophic thinking. But was Irene's reaction inappropriate given the actual facts about our environmental crisis? Or consider James, labeled with social anxiety because he felt uncomfortable in corporate environments where office politics determined success more than competence. Was his discomfort a disorder or accurate perception? This pathologization process transforms appropriate emotional reactions to difficult circumstances into symptoms requiring treatment, rather than recognizing them as natural, adaptive responses to one's environment. Today we'll explore why this happens, how to tell the difference between clinical conditions and healthy awareness, and most importantly, what to do if you've been made to feel broken when you're actually just perceptive. Prior to the late 20th century, many emotional responses were understood within social, cultural, or moral frameworks. In 1952, the first Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders contained just 106 diagnostic categories. Today's DSM-5 has expanded to over 300 disorders, a nearly 300% increase. Did humans suddenly develop hundreds of new mental disorders, or did we simply start relabeling normal human experiences as pathological? The shift toward viewing distress primarily through a medical lens represents one of the most significant cultural transformations in recent history, and there's a shocking connection between this expansion and another booming industry, which we'll get to in just a moment. What was once considered within the normal range of human experience increasingly falls under diagnostic categories, blurring the line between disorder and expected reaction. In the 1980s, shyness was just a personality trait. Today, it might be diagnosed as social anxiety disorder. Grief lasting more than 2 weeks after losing a loved one can now qualify as major depressive disorder. A child's energetic behavior might be labeled ADHD. Did you know that studies show up to 25% of patients receiving antidepressants don't meet the clinical criteria for depression? This isn't to say these disorders don't exist, they absolutely do, and proper treatment can be life-changing for those who truly have them. But the threshold for diagnosis has dropped dramatically, while the range of normal has narrowed. Now, for that connection I mentioned earlier, the medicalization of normal emotions correlates directly with the growth of psychopharmacology. From 1996 to 2005, psychiatric drug spending rose 250% to over $40 billion annually in the US alone. This creates powerful financial incentives to frame emotional states as treatable conditions requiring medication. Consider this: pharmaceutical companies spend twice as much on marketing as on research. Many fund mental health awareness campaigns that, while raising important awareness, also expand their market by promoting medicalized understandings of normal experiences. The question isn't whether these medications help some people, they clearly do, but whether they're being prescribed to many people who don't actually have disorders. Perhaps most importantly, pathologizing individual responses often diverts attention from addressing the underlying social conditions causing distress. If you're anxious about financial instability in a system where 60% of Americans can't afford a $1,000 emergency, is that a brain chemistry problem or an economic reality problem? If you're depressed about climate change while scientific consensus warns of catastrophic outcomes, is that catastrophizing or paying attention? The problem becomes located in the individual's brain chemistry, rather than in socio-economic structures, political systems, or environmental factors. In other words, by labeling your reaction as the problem, society avoids addressing the conditions causing your reaction. Heightened sensitivity to social dynamics, injustice, or environmental threats may be evolutionarily adaptive and socially beneficial, yet is often framed as anxiety disorder or emotional dysregulation. Research from Dr. Elaine Aron on highly sensitive persons shows that about 20% of the population has nervous systems that process information more deeply than average, making them more affected by subtleties others miss. Studies at Harvard have shown that anxiety correlates with higher IQ and greater empathic accuracy, the ability to correctly identify others' emotional states. What if your sensitivity isn't a bug, but a feature? What if society actually needs more people who feel deeply about injustice, who notice subtle problems before they become crises, who experience appropriate emotions in response to troubling circumstances? So how can you tell if what you're experiencing is a clinical condition or simply proportionate awareness? I've developed a simple framework called the R.A.P method, R, response proportionality. Ask yourself, is my emotional response proportionate to the actual situation? If you're terrified of a small spider that poses no threat, that's disproportionate. If you're anxious about losing your job during mass layoffs, that's proportionate. A, alleviating factors. Consider, would removing the stressor alleviate my symptoms? If removing financial pressure would eliminate your anxiety, your reaction is likely situational. If nothing would change your feelings, it might be a clinical condition. P, perception validation, seek out. Do others with similar exposure to my situation share my perception? Not everyone, but specifically others with similar exposure to my situation. Finding communities that validate your perceptions rather than pathologizing them can be tremendously healing. This framework isn't meant to replace professional diagnosis, but it can help you contextualize your experiences before assuming something is wrong with you. Clinical conditions absolutely exist. If your emotions are causing significant impairment in daily functioning, professional help may be appropriate. But not all suffering indicates disorder. Sometimes it indicates accurate perception of problematic circumstances. The solution isn't to reject mental health care entirely, but to develop more nuanced approaches to human distress that honor the wisdom in our emotional responses while still providing appropriate support for genuine clinical conditions. Channel your awareness into constructive action where possible, whether through personal boundary setting or collective efforts towards systemic change. Remember, in a challenging world, feeling challenged doesn't mean you're broken. It might mean you're paying attention. I'd love to hear your experiences with this topic. Have you ever had normal emotions pathologized, or has treatment for a genuine condition helped you? Share your story in the comments below. If you found this perspective valuable, please subscribe to our channel for more content that challenges mainstream narratives around mental health and well-being. Thank you for your attention, and remember, your sensitivity might just be your greatest strength.